When physical inventory is counted, a counting batch is run and lines are generated in the counting journal for items that are included in the count. The counting journal shows only the on-hand quantity that is currently posted in the on-hand field and provides the counted field for the user to manually enter the actual physical count for the line item. When the counted field is populated by the user, the quantity field is auto-populated with the appropriate adjustment quantity. Any differences between the posted quantity and the physical count are a profit or loss and will be posted as such. Each count is given a journal number and date. This lets you view and differentiate data from earlier counts, specifically which counting journal and voucher the count was posted to and the date of the count. The counting journal contains a function that can create journal lines with the individual item numbers and on-hand inventory for each dimension. By clicking Create in the counting journal lines form, you can select one of three methods for creating the lines: items, on-hand, or expired batches. Let's switch over to AX and I'll show you how to create a new counting journal. So, I'll need to go back to the Inventory Management module. Then, underneath the journals, I'll select the Item Counting folder and select Counting. I'll create a new journal by clicking the New icon, and I'll be prompted to select which dimensions I will be counting by. I'll select Warehouse in addition to all of the dimensions that are selected by default, and then click OK. Next, I'll need to select the journal name. I can optionally update the description and then click Lines to start creating the counting journal. Here, I can manually add lines to my cycle count by typing in and selecting the items that I want to count, selecting the site and warehouse and any other relevant dimensions. You'll notice after the dimensions are selected, the on-hand quantity field is populated. Now I could manually type in the quantity that I counted, and you'll notice that the quantity field is populated with -1, which is the adjustment that would need to be made because I only counted 149 of this item. To automatically populate the counting journal with the items that should be counted, you can use the Create button. Here you can see the three options: on-hand, items, and expired batches. On-hand will only select items that are currently in your on-hand inventory. The items option will select any items even if the item is not currently in your on-hand inventory. And the expired batches option will select items that have batch numbers that are expired. For our example, we'll use the on-hand option. All three options will open a dialog that has a similar look and feel. The first thing you'll want to select is the counting date. If you're the warehouse manager and you're pre-creating this journal for your warehouse workers to count, you may want to update the counting date to the date when the count will actually be performed. The maximum number of lines indicates how many items and lines will be added to the journal. For my example, I'm just going to create 10 lines. You may want to consider using this when you have many different cycle counting workers in your warehouse and you want to split the work up between them. Or if you want to split the work into shorter chunks of work. Next, you can mark the physical transaction checkbox, which is used to select only items where physical transactions have occurred since the last count. So, if I mark this checkbox and an item is supposed to be counted every 30 days, but that particular item has not been received or sold or had any movements in the last 30 days, AX would not suggest to recount that item again, even though it's only been, more than 30 days. The next field is the Not Counted Since. When you use this field, items will only be selected that have not been counted since the date you enter here. You can also select a counting group. In the drop-down box, you can choose any of the counting groups that you have created. This will filter and only choose items that have a matching counting group on the item itself or on the warehouse items. By leaving it blank, you're saying to select any item no matter what the counting group is. There's another checkbox here which will activate the counting code. You select this if you only want on hand that meets the counting criteria. Another checkbox is available to only include items or to include items with nothing on hand. So, if the item currently shows that there is 0 on hand, AX will still propose that you count that item to verify that there are no items on hand. On the lower portion of the form, you can see each of the inventory dimensions and you can select how you want the items to be counted. This is especially important in scenarios where items might be stored in multiple locations or have multiple batch and serial numbers. If you mark these checkboxes and the item is batch or serial number controlled, if you can have 20 batches of the same item in the warehouse, 20 lines would be created in the journal, and each batch number would need to be counted individually. You can also use the Select button to filter and select additional criteria for the items that should be counted. For example, let's say you've used the ABC classification to classify your items. So I'll select the item table, and then in the field, I'll select one of the ABC codes, such as the ABC code for revenue. The items would be classified into A, B, or C groups based on their revenue. And then if I just want to count the A items, I would select A in the criteria column. I'm going to reset this because I don't want to use this particular criteria, but this is just to show you what you could do when filtering and creating your cycle count. When you're ready and you've created all the filters that you want to use, you can click the OK button. You'll see that I got a warning message indicating that the counting line stopped because the maximum number of lines has been reached. I'll close this info log and you can review the lines of the journal. Here you can see each of the items that I'm supposed to count and for which site and warehouse. The on-hand quantity column indicates how many are currently on hand. The next step in the process is typically to print this counting journal for a warehouse worker to use. So I'll close this form and show you how we can print the report. Back on the counting journal form, you can click the More button and then select Print Counting List. The Counting List Report dialog will open. You have the option of printing the on-hand quantities when you generate this report. If you mark this checkbox, then the warehouse worker will know how many items are currently on hand according to AX. If you prefer a blind cycle count, then do not check this checkbox and click OK. I'm going to click Cancel and we'll go back and enter the details into the lines of our cycle counting journal and then validate and post. Let's say 11 of this item were counted, 703 items of that, 0 items for this, 1 of those, and I'll type zeros into the other fields that are blank. Once I'm done entering the quantities, I can click the Validate button to make sure that everything is okay. You'll notice that some of the items in my journal are missing a cost roll-up. So before I can post this journal, I would need to go to the Item Master and correct this setup. Once you're ready, you'd click the Post button, and then the changes would be updated in the journal. You'll notice the 3 lines that have the errors in this case have a little image in the log column to indicate that there's an error. You can use the Log button at the top of the form to review the errors later on. For this example, I'll delete the 3 lines that have an error and then go ahead and post the journal. Once you post the journal, you click OK, and a message will be received once the posting is completed. Here you can see the journal has been posted. Now that the journal is posted, no changes can be made to it. And you'll notice that the Posted checkbox is now selected for my journal. If you close the screen, you've now completed the cycle counting process. Next, let's move on to the tag counting journals.